Hello and welcome to another episode of the Jackals and Tackles podcast. I am your host, Brendan McGilligan, and I am joined by Henry Allis Brown. Henry, how are things with you? Life getting any easier as a Harlequins fan, or
There's a couple of glimpses we'll get on to, but yeah, it's been a rough season.
look, it's been a rough season, and we'll start there. Seemingly, as obviously you probably would have been at the match or at least watching it. In terms of Quins themselves going up against Sale Sharks, you came in as favourites. You're the only favourites from the weekend in the Champions Cup that lost. How does that make you feel?
As a fan, I'm not sure I could ever say that we were favourites. Like, you could tell by the mood in the stadium that half empty. Like, how often does the Stoop not get sold out for a start? Like, it's a real indictment on the season that the team's had. Like, sort of last week looked like a bit of another false hope after we had another one against La Rochelle earlier in the tournament, where it sort of just looked like things were finally going to click, and of course it didn't. I think there's things to be positive about, but generally it's just such a lackluster performance.
Well, I don't know. Were you at the stadium? Yeah.
No, no, I was watching at home.
Did you listen to the commentary on Premier Sports by any chance?
Yeah,
Did you hear the amount of abuse they were giving Harlequins fans and giving Harlequins in general? I felt who was ever on the team was pretty harsh and very unfair. To be honest, he said obviously he said there's more Sale fans than Harlequin fans. He said that the Harlequin fans haven't shown up. He just laid into Harlequins. I don't know how you feel about that, considering as you say, you're a loyal fan base, but obviously on Saturday night he didn't kind of show up. But I felt it was very unfair, especially when they're trying to grow the game.
yeah. At the same time, you kind of got to take the punches where they come. Like, it was a poor performance. It was a really poor turnout from what I've seen. Like, a load of the bars weren't even open. Like, it just wasn't. It might as well have just been like a Premiership Cup game as far as like the fans and the atmosphere was concerned. It was sort of almost as though the team had gone into it just going, yeah, this is it. This is our last competitive game. Like, the season's done. Let's just go out, sort of limping out of the game. And it'll be nilled at half time. It was only a two-score game in the end of it, like 9 points in it. So that arguably could have really fought back in, but yeah, it was just the execution was off. It was just anything that really tried to come off didn't. The only things that did work was really when players were going back to that old school sort of Harlequins DNA, for lack of a better term for it, where it's kind of just going into that free flowing, unstructured play. But as soon as trying to get things actually working, it just doesn't come off.
Well, what was the idea? Because I heard a lot of complaints again by the commentary team of why didn't Chandler Cunningham South start? Is there an issue there? Is there a reason why he didn't start in this big game? Because obviously he made such an impact when he came on.
Yeah, it's a really weird one because I still back the fact that he didn't start. Because I do think a lot of his impact was because he came off the bench. I'm not sure he would have had the same impact like if he'd started. Because having him against a tired team, he's a player that's known for kind of having a few mistakes. He's still really young. Like, how old is he? He's like what, 23 years old. Like, you know, we've still got like, what was it? Jack Kenningham started. Admittedly, I know Will Evans started. Fantastic seven. Jack Kenningham on the bench. Like, we've got really good back rows, and actually, we started Guido Petty on the blind side. So it's not like you don't have a established international playing. It's just for various reasons the team couldn't get the performance when he came on. He did make an impact, but I don't think it was necessarily the wrong decision generally to not start him.
That's fair. Well, look, what you have done is you have ended Sale's season as well by injuring their two front rows, hitting Bevan Rod and Luke Dickey. Look, I think that's hamstrung Sale to the point where they now play Leinster in the quarters. Leinster obviously haven't been firing on all cylinders all season. Um, and that's so easy to see considering a lot of their players play for Ireland. Ireland, by the end of the Six Nations, looked like they'd hit form again. But Leinster they've just returned to Leinster and have continued to struggle and get through games. Like, they went into that Edinburgh game as heavy favourites, and they kind of limped over the line after a very strange first half. I think it was about 28-26 after 48 minutes. It was it was weird. And then look, they've got through. That's the main thing. They'll probably get through Seal unless a miracle happens. Will Leinster kind of get come unstuck in the semi final once again when they face either Glasgow or Toulon? And I think it's going to be Glasgow. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's been a really weird season for Leinster because they're perennial favourites in any competition. It's just not really works out for them in a weird way. Like even, coming into the season after probably last season having Geordie Barrett come up, Ruka Ioane's not really had the same impact. I think it's probably quite fair to say. But at the same time, like they still scored 7 tries, nearly put 50 points on Edinburgh, despite it being a really weird game. So I think they're a really tough team to read. And even the decision not to play Prendergast, like that, sort of, there's so much talent and depth there that they can make that decision. But it just almost seems like a team that doesn't quite know what it's trying to be this season.
You mentioned Prendergast there. Do you actually think he's been found out? He came in and he played really well at underage rugby. Don't get me wrong. He clearly has a bit of talent, but once you know what he's going to do, once you know his style, is he very easy to play against? Because one, like, yeah, he's looking to improve his tackle, but they still can't defend. Harry Byrne obviously went away to England and improved with Bristol by getting game time. He's come back, and now I think Ireland need to start looking at making it maybe a battle between Harry Byrne and Jack Crowley rather than between Prendergast. Because Prendergast has been given so many opportunities and has failed to take them that maybe Leinster are now sensing, oh, he isn't the guy. Look, don't get me wrong, he's still, what, 20, 21, 22 maybe. Like, there is time, but I feel for Leinster, it's the whole idea of it's here and now with their squad. Prendergast, I don't think will have a look in by the end of the season.
I think it's probably more, I don't know, maybe in my opinion, probably a bit more second season syndrome with Prendergast, where he's sort of been found out he's got to develop his game a little bit more, which he hasn't really been able to do this season. But I think probably going forward, it's possibly something that's actually going to benefit him in the long run, where it's not him being protected in the same way that he had been maybe last season and at the start of this season. So I think yeah, maybe in the short term, sort of over the next, maybe even until the World Cup, Ireland probably do need to look at their options, but I still think he is probably the man for the future.
You know what? I haven't heard you say that. I actually think he will not make the World Cup squad.
Yeah, I think it's a risk, but at the same time, it's if he's still a very good third choice fly half, and realistically, most teams are going to take 3 fly halves. Would you bring
Well,
him to play against sort of? I can't remember who's in Ireland's pool, but a team like Portugal to get that World Cup experience.
well, no, because I look at Kieran Frawley and what he's doing in terms of he's moving to Connacht next year. He'll be starting fly half at Connacht. He can also play centre and fullback. Would you not want a versatile player in your squad who can play all the positions, but also clearly play that position at a good level? As it was seen with Ireland, like as soon as he was dropped from the Ireland squad, Kieran Frawley was brought in and he didn't get a look in. So again, I think the way things are going, he might need to look at the 2031 World Cup as his World Cup. Do you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
quite possibly,
2027's
quite
off for him.
possibly.
But
Yeah, there is a good chance.
but look, as I say, they've managed to get through. That's the important thing. That's what David Cullen said right before the match started was he just wanted to get through. Because Leicester for years have played fantastic rugby and not got over the line. The last time they won was in Bilbao. I'm pretty sure if they got to Bilbao again, they'd be happy just to be like, look, we're here. We know how to win it. Let's go. But it will then very much depend who they play on the other side. No, that's me not giving any credit to Glasgow. Glasgow have been immense this season, and Glasgow could have Leinster's number. But in the final, on the other side, you've got Northampton, Bath, Bordeaux, and Toulouse. Could you see Leinster beating any of those teams?
Well, I mean, we would have seen them beating Northampton last year at the Aviva, and we saw how that turned out. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it is one of those ones where Leinster would probably go in as favourites. I think Bath or Northampton could probably spring a surprise, but again, we've said so many times before that it's so common now, particularly as you get into this stage of the season, that Premiership teams can't fight on two fronts. It hampered Quins a few years ago, got to the semi-finals and missed out on making the top four in the Premiership. It happened to so many teams. Northampton last season getting to the final of Europe, but then completely scrapping the rest of their Premiership season. So I think, you got Northampton and Bath fighting at the top of the Premiership side. I do think there is a risk that they'll be stretched too thin, and then that's where Leinster could really capitalise.
See, I would agree with that normally, but the one team I would disagree with that on is Bath. They have the players, they have the squad depth. You saw that, look, they were able to send a B team to Sale and beat Sale at home, which not many teams usually do. This season's a bit different. But they've managed that. I think Bath are the exception to that rule. I think Johan van Graan will manage his team to be able to fight on two fronts. He knows the big games. If they get a home semi-final for the Premiership, he'll be happy enough. And he will. That means if he finishes top or second, he doesn't care. Because he knows he'll win at home. Bath usually do. They'll get to the final. And then it's a one-day thing. Why not? He will know the big game will come at Bordeaux or Toulouse. He knows that will be the massive one in Europe. And I'm pretty sure he'd be up for that. He'd be up for winning another European trophy. Like, look, they won the treble last year. They did it on two fronts. Why can't they do it again with a stronger squad?
Yeah, I do think they're probably in a better position than last year. But again, we saw last year they really bottled the first bit of the Champions Cup to get into the Challenge Cup to make that possible for them. And that was a very different start. I think they probably are in a stronger position to do that this year. But I also do see weaknesses in that Bath team that I don't know if they were there last year.
Mm. What weaknesses do you see?
I think particularly like sort of in the outside backs, it's very, very free flowing and expansive, but at the same time in defence, I'm not sure that they're quite as. I think they're a lot more stronger sort of through the midfield than maybe it's sort of looking after the Six Nations, looking at someone like Henry Arundel and Joe Thokanasiga's never been a particularly strong defender comparatively. It's really, I think, if you can get around them, then probably not the hardest team to score against. It's then just a question of how much can they score against you.
Yeah, but then my question is obviously, and it goes back to the thing of it's a different level of international rugby. It's a little bit more forgiving at club level. I know that once they face Bordeaux and Toulouse, that won't be the case, but they have obviously shown that against Northampton and against other English sides, like defence in England is terrible. It is score after score after score in England. Watching it, and a lot of easy scores. Like, do you think this will go back to the Six Nations that we never had to talk about? Do you think that's actually an issue for England? Is still this model of keeping the Premiership, because you've got some of your best players playing in France, playing some of the best rugby at highest level rugby at club level that there is. Do you think there still needs to be this debate about bringing those players back to play for England?
Yeah, I still think I do back the decision to make the Premiership sort of the focal point and to prevent players going overseas. But I think the problem is the number of teams in the league where you've only got 10 teams and you've got no relegation. That there is no real incentive to defend in the same way that there is. Even in the URC, there's more teams, there's more jeopardy, there's a bit more on the line. Whereas in the Premier, like, you just need to come in the top 8 in the Champions Cup. Anything from fifth to eighth, doesn't really matter where you finish. Anything sort of above that, you're in the semi-final, so that's a positive anyway. And realistically, if you're in Quins or Newcastle's situation right now, then you're not really playing for anything either anyway. So I think that's probably as much the issue in a lot of ways. It's just there's not as much on the line anymore.
So what I'm getting from you then is you're not a fan of this new franchise model they're going to adopt?
Absolutely not. I don't think I've been very subtle with that over the years, but yeah, I think you need. I mean, they're talking about bringing in more teams, maybe even making it a 20-team league, which will make it different to. I'm not sure who those 20 teams would be, but.
Then, if that was the case, then how do you look after player welfare? Like,
Yeah,
how do teams survive financially because you have to pay so many more players to play? How will are they doing any of this planning?
Yeah, it does seem a bit questionable. It sort of does feel like they've gone 20 teams. Yeah, that's a round number. That's what they have in the Premier League. That's something that would work without necessarily going who that'd be. But then you look at the teams that it could be. You got Ealing, Worcester, Wasps could come back, London Irish could come back. That's 4. That brings it to 14. You then got your likes of Coventry. You got there's a few others in the Championship that could make the step up if they get the funding and get the investment. But I think that's probably 12 to 14 is real where the sweet spot is. But yeah, I think you need to add the jeopardy back into the Premiership, whether it's making it so there's a bit more of a battle for Europe or whether it's bringing back relegation and having that scrap. I think that's probably where we'd need to get the defence more on point.
Fair, that's fair. On the franchise element, just to finish up on it, who would be allowed to be relegated from that Premiership at present? Who's allowed to be relegated? Because you got Red Bulls money at Newcastle, so you can't have them relegated. You then have Sale, who are the only other northern teams, so you can't have them relegated. You can't have any of the London clubs because that's where the heartbeat of the sport is. Are like Gloucester the only club allowed to be relegated at present?
Well, they've got no Premiership titles, so they are the team that you could argue doesn't have the same heritage. But no, I think of the brands that are probably in it, they're all established enough. Maybe, my bias will say Saracens can go down, but
they've already been down
before. But no, I think, the teams that are currently in it will be protected as much as they can be. You could argue an Exeter haven't been in the league for as long, but they've established their European champions. So I think, there's not, if there were a team that could go down, probably would have to be someone like a Gloucester. But I think even they would be protected as the brand that they are.
Yeah, no, that's fair. As I said, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's only 10 teams. It's ridiculous how it works. Even then, it was ridiculous before, even with relegation, because it was a team to get relegated, they come straight back up, and it'd be the same 3 or 4 teams that were constantly going up and down. But there needs to be something done because you want to have that kind of same French model. And talking about the French, we've got a great quarterfinal lined up in Bordeaux and Toulouse. Now, you've got the top 14 champions against the current Champions Cup champions. Obviously, both play Saint Leighton rugby. Many people said that Bordeaux were the favourites for the competition, but I think that would be ignoring Toulouse's record against Bordeaux. Like, how do you see it going? I personally can't overlook Toulouse with just how they're able to dismantle Bordeaux, but also shape up them defensively, because not many teams can handle Bordeaux defensively, and that's where I think the difference is. What do you think?
I think especially now that Toulouse have got Antoine Dupont back, and they really kind of got their full first team in a lot of ways, that they are looking unstoppable. But Bordeaux are at home, and that will make a bit of a difference. Whether Toulouse actually care about that, we will see. But I think that will be very exciting. I don't know if I could call it at this point, but I think very exciting to consider. I mean, what's the top 14 table looking like at the moment? That's
Toulouse are very, very, very far ahead. They are very comfortable, which means that it's not that you can rest your players because it's obviously now the next game, but they could go into the semi-final and not worry about needing to win that many top 14 games. They could put all their focus on winning this competition again.
12 points ahead of Power at the moment, and didn't Toulouse get a point deduction at the start of the season?
4 points, yeah.
It's you probably are right that they can kind of really put a bit more focus on getting into that, onto that quarterfinal, onto the semi-finals, looking ahead. So I think you probably would say Toulouse are favourites, but I still think it would be a very tight game when it actually comes to it.
And finally, just to kind of wrap up on the Champions Cup talk, before we move on to, obviously, Ulster and their fine campaign. South African teams, they put up, obviously, Toulon. The argument was made that the Stormers should have beaten them, and there was controversy around the final try being disallowed in terms of Ollivon. Was he in the dead ball area, so could he illegally tackle rather than do what he has to do? But South African teams, again, have not made kind of the semi-final or not made a huge impression on the Champions Cup. What are your thoughts on South African clubs in this competition? Now, look, they both put out their strongest teams. They kind of cause an upset. in this round, and that's to be fair to them because previously they hadn't ever went for the games in the Stormers or the Bulls. But what do you think about their inclusion in the competition? Because there's obviously a lot of South African fans angry online and people being like they shouldn't be in it at all. When even though they are trying, they're losing because I don't want to say it. A lot of English clubs have went out. 3 of the Irish teams went out at this level and are playing Challenge Cup. They're doing better than most. So what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, I didn't like when they joined the competition. I don't think it's the European Champions Cup. I think it should be its own thing. I think like South Africa should have its own thing in the Southern Hemisphere, its own equivalent with the Super Rugby teams. I think that should be the way it should be going forward. I know that doesn't quite align with the way the calendars work out, but I think that would make it a more global game rather than trying to concentrate everything into one place. But I think sort of when they first joined the competition, it was very much a case of they didn't really understand what the Champions Cup was. They didn't understand the prestige of it. Whereas now I think the fans are definitely buying into it, the players are buying into it, and the teams are kind of really respecting the competition for what it is. They're not getting the results, but then neither are Quins, so I can't really complain too much. But I think they are proving their point. But until they have a team getting to the semi-finals, getting to the finals, there will always be that question mark over do they belong here? And I think there are better options, but they're making a better case for themselves this season than they ever have done before.
Do you know what's funny, and do you know what I actually think might happen? Is do you know this new format that was announced last year in terms of in 2028 where they bring the southern clubs to play the northern clubs in this world club kind of thing
Yeah.
where you have to get through the first round of the pool stage to qualify for it. I bet you South African team will win it.
Oh, 100%.
They will go. They will go full guns blazing to win that and have that whole prestige and be like, "Yeah, we're the best in the world." I guarantee it.
Yeah, it would be typical, wouldn't it? Typical South
Yeah.
African.
But look, I know we're going to touch briefly, quickly on the Challenge Cup before we let you enjoy your beautiful Easter Monday. Um, but the thing is, Henry, Ulster got through. They limped through. I would have said Ulster are among the favourites to have won this competition. And the reason I said that was because I thought Newcastle would have beat La Rochelle C. And then La Rochelle C decided, no, we'll beat Newcastle. And I have now a fear that La Rochelle are like, oh, we're in a quarter final. Why can't we just kind of win some silverware this year? And they're going to send their big guns to Belfast and just destroy our little season.
Yeah, I mean, I said earlier on in the season that I could have seen Newcastle going a lot further in this competition. That I think it was really the thing that they were putting their effort into. The Premiership was what it is. They're getting the odd result, but it's not important this season. Prem Cup,
Yeah.
yeah, whatever. Like, who really cares about that at this point? But yeah, what was it? La Rochelle had 4 drops on the bench or something absolutely silly.
Yep.
Yeah, what was it? 26-18, still a respectable scoreline, but yeah, I think La Rochelle have the history behind them of the Champions Cup. And they know that, to not go far in the Challenge Cup's then even more embarrassing than getting dropped down into it in a lot of ways. So I think Ronald O'Gara being in charge, like they have that winning mentality that, yeah, I think it will be between Ulster or La Rochelle, whoever goes through, probably will be up there with the favourites. On the other side, you've got Montpellier that probably will get through.
Look, I feel Chiefs will put up a great fight against Benetton. I think they'll beat Benetton because Benetton scraped across the line against Cardiff. And I just hope Ulster. It's it,
Finally
it's
get a bit of
tough as
silverware.
it's tough as a fan, lad, to be historically, arguably a giant in rugby terms, to have not won a piece of silverware since 2006. Like it's tough. It's tough. And at least as a Quins fan, you've had a couple of Premierships since then. But like to be constantly now seen as third choice Irish province, and they have Connacht win the league in 2013, I believe. I could be wrong with the year, maybe 2012, and us being touted as bigger than them forever. it's just tough, lad. And you just need some sort of silverware just to be like, oh, this is great. But as I said, I just fear La Rochelle will come and embarrass us. So look, I don't know. I don't know. So the only question I'll have for you, and I'll let you leave. Obviously, I spoke to Marcus Smith during the week. What are your thoughts on Marcus Smith and how he's performed recently?
Yeah, he's in a weird spot, isn't he? Like, I still think he was probably one of our best performers in the Six Nations. I I just don't see why he's not getting an opportunity at 10 for England. Like, it's becoming really like he's fine at fullback. He's doing the job, and like, he's probably our second, third choice at this point in time for England. But he is an out and out 10, and that's where he thrives. We saw at the weekend even, he started at 10, had to shift back to fullback to cover for injuries when Luke Northmore came off, and that I think was one of the deciding facts in the game that sort of meant Quins couldn't get into it. Jared Evans, fantastic fly half, but it really disrupts the flow. Like for Quins, it was very much shift Caden Murley into the centre, which is a interesting choice. Not saying he's really got too much experience in, but it does reek of Steve Borthwick kind of having a word saying we want to see if there's someone else other than Tommy Freeman that can play that position, which is a good thing to explore. But yeah, it really disrupted the momentum that he can have as a player because having him, the idea of putting him in a position where he can get a bit more ball in hand, a bit more time and space is great. But where he actually really thrives, I think, is sort of catching defenders off guard. If you give him space and time, you know where he's going to go in a lot of ways. Whereas if you have him on the front foot, is he going to go left? Is he going to go right? Is he going to kick? Is he going to pass? That's when defenders really second guess him. So I think, I just want to see him have more of an opportunity at 10, particularly for England. And I think that's where he can really get his form back. And it doesn't help that he's played in two struggling teams. But I think it's not been his season, but I think he can get back to the heights he was at.
Well, I think this whole idea of a double playmaker really impacts him. And the idea of having 110 and him as another 10 on the pitch. I think maybe you just need to simplify that the way you did with George Ford, but maybe have his bit of magic to an extent in that position. I don't know. But look, Henry, we'll leave it at that. And it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. And I hope everyone's enjoyed listening. And I hope to catch you very soon.
Yeah, definitely. We'll catch you next time.
Next time.